Hello, hello. Test, test, test. How's everyone doing? Oh, I always forget. I gotta mute my own stream. Got two streams going on. Okay. So, first order of business. You see that I've got a little coupon code flying around the top, and you can use it starting today. We just had the 1 year anniversary and or 1 year anniversary of streaming, and so I decided to add a coupon code for 50% off. If you'd like to join the trading community, use happy 1 year as the coupon code, and you can use 50% off. So go ahead and use it. What else? Oh, if you follow me on one broker or interested in following me on one broker, there's a link below for my referral link. Go ahead and click that. It's a nice free way of supporting the stream. And yeah, and as always, if you like this sort of content and you want to see more of it, just like, subscribe, share the videos, and it helps a lot. So today we're going to be covering Bitcoin and go over some of the equities trades that I've been going through for the past week. We might talk about some other cryptocurrencies, but mostly we're going to focus on Bitcoin because it's running the show. So one of the first things that sticks out about the current Bitcoin market, if we're looking at the daily chart, which I always recommend, even if you're an intraday trader, you should really look at the daily chart because it tells you the direction of the trade, right? So yesterday marked the closing of a new low, and we'll talk about the significance of that. So up until yesterday, we'd closed a new low here. Let me pull up my my image here. Up until yesterday, we had yet to close a new low for like about a week or so. So we see here, here's the new low, but we retraced. We broke a new low, we retraced, but now we closed a new low, but there's not a whole lot of volume here. So what's going on here? Okay. If we look at this from a macro trading range sort of perspective, we can start to formulate some arguments in terms of like what the supply and demand is doing. One thing we notice is that we do see this meandering sort of thing here. Let me clear off this chart so it'll be a little cleaner. We do see this sort of meandering thing going on here. We can call this a creek if you want. I'm of the opinion that this is a reaccumulation trading range. You can argue it's accumulation, whatever you want to call it, whatever. Where this is the selling climax, this is the automatic reaction, this is the secondary test, this would be the secondary test, and this thing is now creaking. So creek, right? Characteristics of a creek, we see meandering price action on decreasing volume, and often leading into a spring, we see some sell volume increase. But what we see here, which is very interesting and something to keep a really close eye on, definitely, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't think it's actionable yet. It's a very high risk, high reward. I'm not personally going to act on it, but what we see here is as the price is going down, volume is not present here. Even though we closed a new low, there's really no volume to speak of, and we're kind of rejecting it a little bit. So like we see this little candle right here, right? As we look at like the previous the price history, this sort of thing has happened before here, right? So price sort of meandered, not quite as meandery as this one, but we did close a new low here on decreasing volume. Not only that, but this handy dandy oscillator that we've been using in my Discord has been pretty good. So this is called the SMI. It's called the squeeze momentum indicator, and it's been very good at calling both tops and bottoms. So we see divergence here, called a bottom. We see divergence here, we call it a top. Divergence here, bottom. Divergence here, top. And now we've been diverging for quite a few weeks now, and this is sort of looking fractally because we closed a new low. There's no volume kicking in, and it's diverging as well. So this is very reminiscent of this sort of price action here. The only difference though is the longs and shorts aren't as loaded as they were before. So if you look at, so here are the shorts, and the longs are in green, shorts are in red. We see here that as we close this new low on decreasing volume, shorts really picked up, which allowed them to get squeezed on the way up. We're not really seeing a terrible amount of shorts growing, and actually we're seeing longs growing. So this could be taken one of two ways: that the longs are prepped for a long squeeze, which means we're going to push down and squeeze them out, or this is an accumulation zone. Okay, so let's talk about the details of the price action, and let's place an argument for why this could be an accumulation zone and potentially why it could not. So if we think about this from a supply and demand perspective, oh, whoops, where's my pen? From a supply and demand perspective, as the price, we're going to go through each one of these little rallies and talk about the volume action here. So as we pushed up here, we saw increasing volume. As the price pushed down, we saw decreasing volume. As the price pushed up, we saw increasing volume. As the price is pushed down, we've seen decreasing volume. And now we're seeing this sort of like shakeout sort of thing here. And this is where the volume's coming in, but it's being bought up. It's not like, even though it pushed a new low, like it's not really doing a whole lot. You know, you would expect that when it pops a new low, like what it did right here, that the volume just kind of like, you know, really sits through. I mean, that's not what we've seen. And we've tested a new low twice. So we tested it here, and now we're testing it again, and there's just no volume showing up. So there's a very strong case for this to be a low volume spring. Again, high risk, high reward. It's not a play I'm looking to do, but it's a very strong case here. And not only that, but we're kind of seeing like this falling wedge sort of thing here. For the falling wedge, the volume's not the best. We would want to see consolidating volume, but you know, it's not the worst either. Okay, if we look out on the higher time frames for like the cloud, Ichimoku cloud, if we look at like the 3-day, you know, not a whole lot of bullish argument going on here. And when we look at the daily, we can see that, you know, it's not really looking too great here as well. It's very far away from the 50 and the 200 EMA, very far away from the cloud, from like the actual Kumo. And when we look at the weekly, you know, we're sitting below the 200 or the 50 EMA. Not only that, but we've now entered the cloud, or we've entered underneath the cloud. The Chiku span is trending through the price action. Not a whole lot going for it on the macro basis here, but that's how reversals start. Reversals don't look like reversals until they've started trending, right? Like the cloud is a lagging indicator. So if this was a bottom, you wouldn't see it in the cloud until well after it's, you know, shown some strength. The one thing to keep in mind though is we did have this symmetrical triangle right here. So we had a symmetrical triangle here, this whole thing right here, which has a very steep price target. So that's one thing going for the bears. But one thing that what we see is coming out of this symmetrical triangle here on the breakout, the volume just kind of absent. Like it's not really very strong. So, you know, it's kind of like a no man's land. Personally, if I'm not in a, you know, if you weren't in a position, I wouldn't recommend getting in one. This is kind of like a sit and wait sort of thing. You know, if you're super risky and you're good with your risk management, then yeah, you know, maybe this is a great long for the, you know, the low volume spring. Because what we do see, you know, for like a low volume spring sort of argument is, so we got our first low here on okay volume, and now on the retest there's just no volume here, and it came, you know, well within striking range here, and it's just not present. So this volume is telling us a whole lot about the market right now, and that's that the market is just for the most part just unsure of what's going on. The bulls don't know what to do. The bears don't know what to do. And it's kind of just slowly bleeding out. If this does manage to continue downward, we can expect to find support on this fib retracement here on the 78. There's a nice confluence of support here, both volumetrically. You see here on the VPVR, the volume-based support levels. Good support here, confluence of Fibonacci retracements, and there's a fib extension here, which I've talked about pretty often. Not only that, but what is the price target of this thing? It would be 6K. 6K from here would be like, well below that. So any sort of momentum we have here that from the breakout of the symmetrical triangle will likely be, finding some sort of temporary bottom here. So like I said, there's a case for the bulls and a case for the bears. And whenever that's the case, it's usually just not a good idea to trade, or if you do trade wisely, So before we go any further, do you guys have any questions about anything I just said? No questions? Nothing? How long can this go if it does continue down? I have no idea. I don't ever associate price action with a timeline. I don't find that to be a useful sort of thing. When would a spring be invalidated? So that's the thing, is like a spring continues to be a spring until it's not. Just like in a distribution trading range, if it keeps going up, then it becomes invalidated. Like there are so many variations of a spring with trading ranges that, like, even a push down here, this could be considered a terminal shakeout, where it comes down here and immediately V bottoms. A terminal shakeout could look something like this, where it comes down and immediately gets rejected. That's, even if it comes down here, this would still be considered a spring. It's just a different type of spring. It's called a terminal shakeout. Yo, what up, dude? Nothing. Just streaming some crypto. What is the name of that short long indicator? It's not an indicator, it's a chart. It's just a plot of the Bitfinex longs and shorts. See? I just have them overlaid and I'm all fancy. What are the arguments for a redistribution? On a macro scale, I don't know. Like, I don't agree that there is one. Like the volume, when we look at redistribution or distribution in general, as Bruce Fraser says, it's distribution begins and ends with volatility. And that's not what we're seeing here. Like, we're not seeing chaotic volume, we're seeing consolidating volume, which is not usually indicative of redistribution. And not only that, but we're not seeing like crazy price swings. I mean, yeah, we are on low time frames, but overall volatility is consolidating. And it does have a very consistent direction, which leads me to believe that this is more of a creek than a continuation of the overall distribution sort of argument. The people at Apex can tell exact time and price. I've seen them do it. Okay. It's probably because they're running a pump and dump group. Do you have time to look at ADA or Dash? No, I'm not going to be looking at any of those random alts because I don't. It's just, I think trading them right now is a bad idea. Do you think this low volume spring, if it is spring at all, will start new Wyckoff cycle, or it will be a small bull run and continuation of a bear cycle and slow bleed? I think you're misunderstanding what a spring is. A spring would mean that this whole move is a giant reaccumulation, which means that ultimately this is just a pit, which would mean that ultimately, if we're looking at the larger view of things, that this is just a pit stop in an otherwise continuous uptrend. So this would be reaccumulation for this gigantic uptrend. So that's what reaccumulation would look like, right? So if we're looking at the market cycle, you know, we see accumulation, markup, reaccumulation, markup, right? So we see accumulation, markup, reaccumulation, markup, reaccumulation, markup, reaccumulation, right? So on and so forth. And these are all nested within the overall markup. So we see a big ass accumulation, and now we see a potential big ass reaccumulation for a potential continuation of the uptrend. Even if this does retrace down to here, it still looks very likely that it'll just continue upward. Do you trade Forex or commodities? I trade Forex sometimes. I've been really loving the equities market lately. I've been doing really, really well. Just because the markets are so ripe, and whenever the market's really good, I like to really exploit it. So, you know, I'm not really dipping my toes into Forex or commodities yet because the equities market is just so good right now. What's your take on effort versus result currently? I just talked about that. That was what I was talking about when I said the volume is consolidating with the downtrend. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Jesus, Twitch just threw me onto some random gamer who's just like, Jesus, Twitch is such an awesome platform. How do I find the SMI oscillator? Well, there are a few, but the one that Lazy Bear made, it's Squeeze Mom. Let's see if I can pull it up. Squeeze. This one. Just type in Squeeze. It's the very top one. That's the one with the most likes. It's the best one, in my opinion. So going back to this original discussion about the closing price here, if we do, this is the first time we've closed below the absolute low, right? Which is a big deal. If we can close here and have a doji close the market today and it's green, that could be a very bullish signal, or a very the beginnings of a bullish signal. Right, because we see low volume on the push down. We see a weak close yesterday, followed by a doji, which means that we could see some buy volume picking up coming into the weekend and early in the week. But overall, I think that the volume is consolidating. Quite clearly, it is consolidating, right? I'm not really sure how you could argue anything other than that. Like, look at the moving average here. It's trending downward. Just overall, it's trending downward. Prices even after it broke out here, it's still trending downward. It's not looking like, it just looks like an exhausted market is what it looks like. It doesn't look like a strong batch of sellers are hitting the market. Like, we're not seeing strong rounds of selling like this. It just looks like the market is just kind of getting tired of itself. And when the market's doing that, I'm not trying to trade it. That's why I moved over to equities, you know, because this market is just dog shit to trade. But I am keeping an eye on it from a long-term perspective, so that's why I'm looking at the 1 day. Just wanted to say that your work is amazing, by the way. Learn so much from your tweets and this channel. Keep them coming. Thanks, dude. Appreciate that. So do you guys have any more questions about Bitcoin before we move on to some of the equity stuff? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Peace held. All right, so let's talk about these equities, because that's far more interesting right now, in my opinion. So my current positions that I have open, I have GoPro. What do I have? I have Apple, Facebook, Tesla, and GoPro. Tesla's pissing me off right now, but that's okay. I love you, Elon. So let's go down in order here. So first of all, let's talk about GoPro. And let's look at the daily so we can keep things into perspective here. So if we're looking at GoPro from the daily, and we'll start with the cloud, we see price is looking pretty bullish for the most part. You know, price is trending through the cloud. It is still finding resistance on this 200 EMA, but once we pop through that, I think fireworks are really gonna fly. You see the GQ trending through the cloud. Price is above the Kijun, which is good. It is finding a little bit of resistance on the Tenkan, but that's okay. It's on the daily, you see that the downtrend, the reaction off the high here is on decreasing volume. So I think overall, it's looking pretty bullish. If you look in closer, it is starting to form like this little head and shoulders sort of thing, which is kind of annoying. But if we look at it in relation to this inverted head and shoulders setup here, it just looks like it's hitting a throwback, and people are trying to short it. So overall, I'm still confident in the long. I feel pretty good about it. I might close in profit, but we'll see. And now if we go over to Facebook, I'm short on Facebook, and I'll explain why. So if we look at let's look at the 60-minute. If we look at the 60-minute view, we see we came out of this rising wedge. Here's this giant fucking rising wedge, and it broke out and it retested perfectly. And it's making this it's called a complex head and shoulders here. So we're forming out the second right shoulder, and we're about to round out and come back down for the neckline test. So here's the neckline. And if we look closer, we'll see a little bit more detail here. So we see it's getting rejected currently, and yeah, here's the fib set for it, and here's the neckline. So left shoulder, head, right shoulder, neckline. And it's also conveniently making this nice bear flag here. So, which it looks like it's actually starting to break out of there. So we could see some volume picking up here. But overall, still bearish on Facebook. What else am I trading? Let me see. Apple. God, Apple's been busting my balls lately. So Apple, I'm still short on Apple, but I might cut this thing. Loose because, you know, you win some, you lose some, but limit your losses here. There's a potential setup for an inverted head and shoulders here, which I don't like. I'm bearish on it because overall it looks like a distribution. We see a sign of weakness here with the swell of volume and a support. We do see some expanding volume here, but as it reached the highs, it really tapered off. We can see here, right here, like as it started to come up, it really tapered off. And this is usually a sign of an upthrust out of the trading range, or a potential, you know, upthrust after distribution. If we call this the upthrust, this the last point of supply, and this would be like the UTAD. Usually the UTAD, which is the upthrust after distribution, it serves to be a bull trap, because it gives the impression that the market is actually rallying, when really what's happening is it's fueled by short liquidations that push the market out of the trading range and lure in eager bulls. So if ever you were looking for short liquidations, they would be in here for sure. Look at this. Look at these gaps that are just irrationally bullish after such a strong round of selling. So this reeks of an upthrust after distribution here. So although on the low time frames, or on the high time frames, is bullish, Jesus Christ, on the high time frames it's bearish. We see this little inverted head and shoulders here that kind of just disappears in the overall scheme of things. But you know, that little inverted head and shoulders could play out, which would be really fucking annoying. But overall, it's, in my opinion, not looking very good. And now, last but not least, I'm looking at Tesla. I'm currently bullish on Tesla, although it's having a hard retrace right now, which is kind of pissing me off. But it is looking pretty bullish, because we see a strong reaccumulation trading range with a spring, a retest, a jump across the creek here, and now we see the BUEC right where we were expecting it, right here between the 38 and the 50, and it's sitting right on top of, you know, the preliminary supply, if you want to call this. If we follow this line all the way across, it retested it, which is what we'd like to see for a BUEC. Current daily candle, again, really fucking annoying, but you know, that's intraday volatility for you. The sell volume isn't that stiff, so it's not entirely concerning. You know, we did see expanding volume here and here on the way up. Probably should have taken profit up here, just because we saw the volume really taper off. I didn't think he was going to retrace as hard, because if we look at like the 60-minute B bands, you know, it was sitting right on the B band. So the two buys that I got were added to my position. Were because of the B band trend. A lot of times what happens is, as the B bands consolidate, we can see they're starting to squeeze. We do see a little dip below the midline before it actually comes back up. So it's totally possible that's what's going on here. You know, we see that here, right? It was bullish, it broke below it a little bit, and then it gapped up. So that's not super uncommon. Again, we see it here, dipped below, and it gapped up. And I suspect that's what's going on here. But we'll have to keep an eye on it. Something that gives me confidence in that statement is the decreasing volume on the ride back down. So we see decreasing volume here, which, you know, not looking like the most bearish thing in the world, but it is annoying if you're keeping an eye on the profit and loss, because it's oscillating between green and red, which means you're basically like at baseline there. So not the most fun thing in the world right now, but I think it's gonna have a strong close regardless. And if we look on the low time frames, we do see a potential sloppy head and shoulders here, but it's, like I said, it's sloppy. It's nothing to really worry about. And we see here that on the push down, you know, the volume is really consolidating. It just had one nice red candle, and I suspect this is just bullish exhaustion or longs taking profit or cutting their losses here. And now we see the more patient bulls most likely going to step in here. Other stuff I'm watching Oh, let's talk about Boeing. Boeing. So overall, Boeing is in distribution. If you're following me on one broker, maybe let's do 2 hour. Yeah, let's do 2 hour. So if you're following me on one broker, you know that I've had an on again, off again relationship with Boeing. We initially shorted here, took nice profit here, added, we basically shorted the whole way down and took profit in here. Missed this chunk of move. That's okay. I think this was more like a bear trap. We see the SMIs heavily diverging here on the way down. It gapped, and never retraced. And now we're seeing the fulfillment of the gaps, which is making a nice W bottom here. Okay. I suspect what's going to happen is this is going to come up for a last point of supply. So it's going to come rounding up. What I'd like to see is a retest of this PSY high, the preliminary supply, and a rejection of this, which just so happens to be the price target of this W bottom. So if this comes up and tests here, this would make a really great last point of supply for the rejection, and then the ultimate dumping of Boeing stock. So I'm overall bearish on Boeing, but I think short term it's going to see a little bounce here. I'm not really keen on counter trend trading it because the risk to reward is kind of shitty. But I am looking to reshort it right up here at around like 350 or so. Other stock that I'm looking to short as well, I think Google is going to make a great short. It looks like a really nice triple top setup, and there's a confluence of shit going on here. So if you look at the weekly, we see a 3 pushes to a high setup on the weekly B bands. It's not, as if you follow me on Twitter, you saw my correspondence with John Bollinger, the guy who actually created Bollinger Bands. And he was saying, he's like, it's a good setup. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. The weekly closed prior to that, or after that conversation, with a nice hammer here. We saw some red, and it's, looking for a nice triple top or 3 pushes to a high setup. And when we look at the daily, we can see the Wyckoff setup here, where strong presence of supply here, weak volume on the rallies, increasing volume on the reactions, and now it kind of broke out of this little channel thing here. And if we look a little closer, like on the 60-minute, I believe what's most likely going to happen, I mean, don't quote me on this, we came back, we retested this thing. So here's the channel. We had a throwback is what it's called. So it breaks out as a throwback. And I think what's most likely going to happen is we're going to potentially make an inverted head and shoulders thing here, where this rallies up, traps some bulls up in here, and proceeds to just shit all over the place. So yeah, I'm keeping an eye on Google, looking to go short on it. Twitter, seeing a bad week so far, but overall I'm bullish on the long term. So Twitter stock exited this 2-year-long accumulation phase. It's looking beautiful. I'm looking to go long on it, but I'm not willing to go long until I see some sort of test of this B-band's midline, which is most likely, by the time it actually gets down to test it, is going to be right around this high right here, I think. So that would be a nice confluence of support. So I'll be looking to go long around, what is this, 38? Yeah, around 38, I'll be looking to take a long. So I think that'll be a great throwback and continuation of the uptrend. What else? Intel is weird. If you look at Intel, it's been in this rising wedge. It broke out. Now it's in a falling wedge. It broke north, and now it's trying to figure out what it wants to do. And it looks like it's making a low time frame bull pennant sort of thing here. I'm looking to reshort it. The price target of this wedge is basically from here to here. So it's a 250 move, 260 move. So I'll be looking to go short, somewhere up here. in the low 50s, low 51s, 52 maybe. A really great entry would be a retest of this gap, so 52.30-ish. So I'll be keeping an eye on that, but I'm not looking to touch until it does that. Amazon, not looking the best either. We got divergence on the daily SMI heavily. We see it's got this supply, this demand line here, and it's currently violating it right now. On the open, we gapped above it, but it got rejected pretty immediately. And we can call this the demand line because we see here that every time it dips below it, we see a swell of volume pushing it back up. And this time when we dipped below it, the demand just wasn't there. The bulls are getting exhausted. So I suspect that we're going to see a pretty stiff retracement on Amazon. So I'm of the belief that the entire FANG market, you know, Facebook, Apple, what is the other one? Facebook, Apple, Google, Netflix. What is the other A? Why am I drawing a blank on this? What's the other A? Oh, Amazon. Pfft. Apple and Amazon. I think they're all distributing right now. I think this is all a giant bull trap right now. And yeah, so I'm pretty bearish on them as a whole. Schmidt, why are you trading against the trend? You anticipating a market top? I'm not trading against the trend. I haven't counter trend traded the equities market once. Well, that's not true. I took a brief position, but overall, I have not been counter trend trading the equities market. Amazon announced an increased use of local delivery services. Major delivery services took a hit. Yeah, dude, I use Amazon a lot. Amazon's a shit. But I don't think that is any way correlated to the stock. That's just kind of a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of thing. I don't trade fundamentals. With exception, you know, like with exception, I don't really look at fundamentals that much. Yeah, someone asked me look at S&P. Yeah, let's do that. God, I hate this volume. It's just so stupid. So if we look at S&P, we see, damn it, I haven't checked it in like an hour or two. It gapped up, huh? I might reshort this thing. So I shorted it early on in the week. So if you were on that trade, kudos to you. It was a nice profit. We shorted the retest of this rising wedge, closed it on the new low. So I'm pretty happy about that close. And it's kind of making this W bottom thing, but it might be a bull trap. If we look at the Bollinger Bands on the daily, you know, like it's not showing any signs of a potential reversal. If we look at the hourly, nothing crazy. If you look at the 4 hour, we see we rejected the midline almost, you know, damn near perfectly, and it looked to retest the high here. So if we retest this rising wedge, I'll most likely short it again. I'll keep an eye on it. Like, it's not a hard rule that I'm looking to short, but it could be a good short entry. What else? Oh yeah, also if you look at the daily cloud, we got a weak bearish cross here, so not looking the best right now for the S&P. Granted, it is a weak bearish cross. We did find a little bit of support on the open today on the 50 EMA, but it is starting to lean a little bearish as a whole, or beginning to, I should say. Nothing crazy, nothing like, oh, time to get out of the market sort of thing, but you know, we did see a rising wedge break out. We did see it break out with a diverging SMI, So, you know, the bearish things are starting to stack up, but it could easily go the other way. This is kind of a sit and wait sort of thing. And if I see a good short entry, I'll take it. Not really looking to long this right now because it very well could be forming a head and shoulders here. I just noticed this. It could be forming a head and shoulders. So shoulder, head, shoulder. So that could get ugly. If that forms a head and shoulders, that'd be pretty brutal. When I enter the coupon code for Discord, I get this message. Sorry, this coupon is only valid for subscription products with a sign-up fee. Am I doing it wrong? Send me a message on Twitter. I'm not sure what you're getting, but I'll try to help you out. And what about the overnight funding rate? What? What do you, I'm not sure what you're asking me. What are you referring to? Can you take a look at Alcoa? Yeah, I'll look at Alcoa. Specifically the volume profile on the weekly. Alcoa doesn't look. Oh, whoops. Alcoa doesn't look bad. It kind of looks like it's reaccumulating right now. I don't know. It's not a very clean trend, or it's not something that I would like to trade personally. It does look like it's entering a potential reaccumulation trading range because it's sitting right above support. It broke out of this trading range right here. You know, boom. So, so fun fact about trading ranges, if we see a breakout of a trading range on not decreasing volume, but on low volume, that is often a sign of strong market control by the composite operator. So this thing was accumulating for a fucking decade, basically. And so yeah, this could be in strong hands by the CEO. Like this looks like a really strong stock. So long-term investment looks pretty nice, if you ask me. What about the overnight funding rate for leverage on one broker and paying interest on the leverage? Dude, the interest on one broker is like non-existent. Like it's seriously like super fucking low. But volume died out. Yeah, so sometimes when you see accumulation trading ranges break out, volume is low. It's low because the composite operator has such strong control over the stock that there aren't any sellers left. He shook all of them out. That's a really common thing that happens. Like if we look at Bitcoin, we look at the history of Bitcoin, it had a similar breakout. So, for example, here, right? So volume just really dies out right here. It's non-existent. Well, that's because it had a strong accumulation phase. 1, 2, 3 reaccumulations before the massive markup. And the volume is so low because the composite operator got such strong control over the asset. So that happens sometimes. So that's not necessarily a bearish indicator. So, you know, be careful about how you're judging volume. Is there anything you don't like about one broker? Yeah, I don't like that their index markets are open 24/7. I think that's fucking stupid. They combine they have like a weird hybrid market on their indices where they combine futures and the actual index price, which gives you some absurd market that is like a composite, and they're not very straightforward about that. I had to ask them because I got stopped out with an overnight position, and I was like, how the fuck did I get stopped out at 3 a.m. when the market hasn't even opened? And it's because they combine their market not only with the asset itself, but with futures. So that's one thing I really don't like about one broker. But other than that, like their equities trades and their trading engine is pretty smooth and pretty clean. And I like that people can copy trades. So that's really nice. It empowers the traders. So I think it's pretty cool. If you trade high leverage, interest rate is quite high. It's not high at all. I don't know why you're saying that. Facebook got a new low, so that's promising. Short's looking good. You don't do any Forex? I do sometimes. I have in the past. I just haven't lately because the equities market is so good. All right, do you guys have any other questions? Oh, let's talk about NVIDIA real quick. So NVIDIA is also distributing. We see this nice upward slanting distribution trading range. I wanted to get in and reshort it, but man, I was hoping it would retrace to like the 250 and it never did. So I fear that I missed the boat on that one because it looks like a really good short macro wise. You know, maybe it will come back up there eventually, but right now I'm not looking to short it. I don't like the setup yet. I closed out my position a while ago, but overall I'm bearish on NVIDIA. Is your one broker strategy affected by the declining Bitcoin price? No, it's not. I don't know why it would be. All right, should we wrap it up? Again, you know, if you've ever been interested in joining my community, my trading group, go to bitcoinschmitcoin.com. We've got a coupon code. It's valid for until the end of July. It's called, the coupon code is scrolling across the top left corner. It's happy 1 year, and it's the biggest coupon code we've offered. So if you've ever been interested, now's the time to do it. It's 50% off whatever package you use. So if you want to use the 1 month, you get 50% off. And if you want to use the package, which is like already a discount, then you get 50% off that as well. So that's doesn't get much better than that. So check it out. If you want to follow me on one broker, click my referral link below in the description. It's a good way to passively support the stream. Or if you want to just you know, like, subscribe, share it with your friends, show your mom, let her know what a handsome young man you've become. Do that as well. It's also cool. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm gonna most likely do a Monday stream so I can update the equities market on the market open. And yeah, good luck, guys. Have a great weekend. Don't stare at the charts too long.